Previously on the Originals, after 5 years, Haley successfully awakened all the Originals. Together, they returned to New Orleans to rescue Klaus. Marcel released the Originals but warned them never to return to the city. In the end, Klaus was finally reunited with his daughter, Hope. This was a rare moment of father-daughter bonding in Klaus's life. He took Hope for a walk in the forest, sharing stories from his childhood about using plants to make paint. A butterfly with a broken wing caught their attention. Hope removed her bracelet and handed it to her father.
Shh, don't tell my mom.
Klaus looked at his daughter with a gentle gaze. Hope closed her eyes and silently released her magic toward the little butterfly. To her father's astonishment, the once injured butterfly miraculously took flight. The two exchanged a smile. The scene warm and beautiful, they continued their walk through the woods. Hope confided in her father, telling him about her struggles with not being able to fully control her magic. Klaus comforted his daughter.
You're going to be the greatest witch the world has ever seen, and nothing will scare you.
Hope said that she knew her father was the strongest person in the world, capable of defeating any villain. At such a young age, she already knows what it means to be afraid.
Nothing is going to harm my little girl. Nothing will even get close. You're all that matters to me.
Hope happily threw herself into her father's arms, and Klaus felt deeply moved and satisfied. But Klaus gradually noticed that his daughter's small body was trembling slightly. He picked her up and carried her back to the house, not noticing the mysterious blue light flickering ominously behind them. Haley secretly made her way to the barn, where she untied Keelan's tools for making poison and urged her to escape quickly. But just as Keelan broke through the window and fled, Freya arrived at the barn. Freya couldn't understand why Haley had released Keelan on her own. Haley, however, insisted that it wasn't fair to her people. As their argument grew more heated, Elijah intervened just in time to break it up. Freya stopped arguing with Haley and decided to go after Keelan herself. As night fell, Klaus admired his daughter's artwork with pride, not missing the chance to boast about it to his sister. Rebecca remarked that her niece was much more talented than her father.
True art is lost on the feeble-minded.
Rebecca hesitated before speaking, then said that Cole had already left. After dying twice and being trapped in a dream for 5 years, he was now seeking freedom. Rebecca bid Klaus farewell, saying she was also leaving to find her own happiness in life. Although Klaus was very sad, he still gave his sister his sincere blessing. Klaus said that hope is where he belongs in life, and that his sister deserves to find her own heart's desire. Elijah had meticulously prepared a romantic candlelit dinner under the tranquil night sky. They shared a passionate kiss, expressing their love for each other. Everyone in the family was pursuing their own happiness, and Freya was no exception. Keelan kicked Freya, sending her flying, then seized the opportunity to jump out of the car and escape. But Freya quickly used magic to restrain Keelan, warning that if Keelan didn't return with her, she would continue to torment her on the spot. A blue sports car parked by the roadside soon caught Cole's eye. Just as he was about to ask the car owner for the sports car, he realized that a vampire had already beaten him to it. Rebecca said she knew her brother would like it. The long journey ahead would surely be lonely, so the siblings decided to travel together. On this night that belonged solely to the Michelson family, the car they were riding in sped toward the freedom that lay ahead. Gruesome witchcraft has reappeared in New Orleans, with 4 young children brutally sacrificed as offerings. With just a backward glance from Zealot, the children all turned around and walked numbly to their deaths. Adam's eyes turned white. Zealot, however, wore a vicious expression, but Marcel arrived just in time to stop him from completing the ritual. Yet with a wave of his hand, Zealot sent iron bars flying, pinning Marcel to a pillar. Vincent grabbed a weapon and delivered a heavy blow, knocking Zealot to the ground, but Zealot accurately called out Vincent's name, claiming that he wasn't his enemy.
It is happy you're here. It wants you here.
Zealot's cryptic words left Vincent bewildered. Zealot said, "That thing is hidden in your heart, loving you just as much as it loved your wife." Vincent, now enraged, shoved Zealot to the ground and began to pummel him. Zealot laughed instead of retaliating. Vincent attempted to use magic against him, but his powers were no match for Zealot's. Vincent was hurled a great distance. Zealot tried to finish off Vincent, but Marcel woke up just in time to drive a wooden stake into Zealot's body. Zealot, not one to be outdone, quickly overpowered Marcel in return, with just a soft command from Zealot. The children all collapsed to the ground in unison. Miles away, Klaus saw the strange magical symbol his daughter had drawn, but the supposedly asleep Hope appeared before him. She said she had a dream.
He was hurting these kids, and I think he hurt me too.
To Klaus's shock, blood began to trickle from Hope's nose. Marcel, still bound by the witchcraft, could not move. Vincent advanced, pressing a dagger to Zealot's throat. But Zealot fearlessly stated that Vincent himself had unleashed this monster, he was merely feeding it. Vincent, without another word, slashed Zealot's throat, but the sacrificial spell had already taken effect. Vincent hurried to the side of the unconscious children, only to find that they were all bleeding from their noses. Fortunately, Vincent understood this type of witchcraft. He could reverse the spell. He gently clapped his hands and chanted continuously. Adam was the first to regain consciousness, and soon the other children began to sit up as well. Seeing the crisis averted, they breathed a sigh of relief. But Vincent quickly noticed something strange. There were only 4 children, yet 5 personal items had appeared on the table. Marcel picked up a white comb, and on the back, a symbol indicated that it belonged to the Michelson family. The ordeal had finally come to an end. Marcel informed the medics to take the children to the hospital for examination. However, Vincent warned that it wasn't over yet. The children could die at any moment. He urged Marcel to allow the Michelson family to return to New Orleans.
And she's a kid, all right? And she's practically your sister.
Marcel relented, permitting the Michelsons to come back, but only on the condition that he never sees them, and no one else knows they have returned. Haley, holding her daughter tightly, was filled with anxiety. She said that Hope had never been sick before, but Freya quickly recognized the signs of witchcraft. Klaus's expression grew increasingly grave. Haley suddenly sensed something was wrong. She pulled out a note from her bag. It was a message from Vincent, sent through magic. He said he could heal Hope, but they had to return to New Orleans. This meant that the 3 siblings would once again be exposed to Marcel's forces. An ambulance sped down the highway with the children inside, but it was soon stopped by a police car blocking the road. The driver got out to see what was happening, but Detective Kinney, without a word, slit the driver's throat. Then he got into the driver's seat and continued speeding down the road with the children. The ambulance disappeared into the thick darkness of the night. A crow fell from the sky, landing at Hope's feet. Then, a large number of dead crows began to plummet one after another, surrounding Hope. Haley hurried to her daughter's side. The strange phenomenon left everyone stunned, but what Hope said shocked them even more.
Whispers, saying the name over and over.
Hope repeatedly murmured a phrase in a nearly extinct dialect. Vincent's expression was one of helplessness and despair. The dead crows formed a circle around Hope. An unknown entity called the Hollow had set its sights on the only bloodline of the Michelson family. The Michelsons finally returned to New Orleans, but their once warm home was now in ruins. To deal with the trouble surrounding her daughter, Haley decided to talk to Marcel. She was the only one in the family who wouldn't be torn to pieces by him on sight. Klaus stayed behind to care for their daughter. Upon hearing the news, Freya also prepared to return to New Orleans. She decided to recruit Keelan to help her take down Marcel, planning to combine ancient witchcraft and modern technology to create a weapon that could kill him. Freya handed Keelan a ring that could control her transformations. Keelan doesn't want to take part in such a risky endeavor, but she can't get the ring off her finger. A deal was struck. The first step in their plan was to steal Marcel's venom. They sneaked into Marcel's home, and Freya suggested Keelan use her werewolf instincts. Keelan responded that she was a werewolf, not a bloodhound. With no other choice, Freya used magic herself, and a locked case clicked open. Keelan immediately looked impressed. Freya attempted to use magic to open the case, but it was clearly warded against spells. Keelan offered to figure it out herself and suggested that Freya go be with her niece. Freya left with a skeptical attitude. Marcel gathered the witches together to ask who had drawn the magical symbols on the city streets, but the witches refused to cooperate, still harboring resentment toward Marcel. A witch with a child was the first to reject him. Haley stepped forward, explaining that she had a 7-year-old daughter who was now being harmed by the Hollow. Moved by Haley's motherly love, the witch revealed that the first person to draw the symbol wasn't a witch but a werewolf girl, who was currently hiding in the bayou. Haley and Marcel arrived at the bayou, where Lara was waiting for them by the riverbank. She recognized Haley and Marcel instantly. Lara explained that she had no intention of dragging innocent children into this. The followers of the Hollow believed they were doing something noble, taking the city back from the vampires. Haley said all she wanted to know was how to save her daughter, but Lara shook her head, explaining that the children were chosen as sacrifices for the Hollow's resurrection and that their fate was already sealed. However, she couldn't bear to witness it and felt ashamed for having harmed the children. With that, Lara stabbed herself in the neck. Haley quickly held Lara in her arms. Once again, the trail went cold. Elijah approached Vincent, demanding they work together. Vincent pointed out that Elijah didn't care about the other children's safety. Elijah didn't deny it, saying he would do anything for Hope.
You are facing two evils. Wouldn't it be nice to have one of those by your side?
The Michelson siblings were all the same in their methods. Another deal was forcibly struck. Vincent began preparing a spell to locate the missing children. He quickly saw everything that had happened the previous night. His trusted friend Kinney had become an accomplice to the Dark Sorcerer. The truth left Vincent feeling utterly helpless. He didn't know what he had done to bring the Hollow into existence, but he knew it was his responsibility to end it. Vincent arranged to meet with Kinney, telling him that dark magic had once again targeted him. First it took his wife, and now it was trying to take his best friend. Realizing he'd been discovered, Kinney raised a gun at his friend. Vincent tried to persuade Kinney to turn away from the darkness, but Kinney said he was there under orders from the organization. Kinney then fired at Vincent without hesitation, but Elijah intercepted him, and then quickly knocked Kinney to the ground.
You want to see mine?
Without a word, Elijah invaded Kinney's mind, but the Dark Sorcerer hiding in the shadows blocked his attempt. Vincent said he knew how to break through the barrier. Concerned for his niece, Elijah was ready to resort to torture, but Vincent disagreed, insisting that Kinney was a brainwashed victim. Elijah reluctantly agreed and stepped aside for Vincent, to prevent Kinney from being tortured by a vampire. Vincent tried to break the mental barrier with magic, but Kinney, an ordinary human, suddenly broke free and stood up, pulling a magical sigil from his chest that sent Elijah flying into the wall. Then, he aimed the magical sigil at Vincent, knocking him to the ground. Kinney leaves as if nothing happened. Elijah asked Vincent if there was another way. Vincent replied that he had placed a spell on Kinney. They could track him to find the Dark Sorcerer's lair. You've never seen Klaus this gentle before. To comfort his bedridden daughter, he promised that once she gets better, he'll take her to eat the biggest pie in the world and to visit any place she wants to go. Hope smiled and said that Mom told her dad's favorite place is New Orleans, but Klaus replied that it's not right to invest too much emotion in a city, because only family is worthy of that kind of devotion. Mom and Uncle Elijah were working on a way to make her better. Seeing the worry and fear in his daughter's eyes made Klaus's heart ache, so he made a vow to her.
Do you know what it is? The Hollow?
I'm going to keep you safe. Always and forever.
But Hope warned Klaus that if he ever saw a flash of blue light, he mustn't look directly at it. Elijah and Vincent tracked Kinney into the forest. Klaus soon joined them, saying that Freya was using potions to ease Hope's pain. Haley and Marcel arrived shortly after. A family once torn apart by power and hatred had reunited to fight for their only bloodline. Marcel offers to go with Klaus, not wanting to let him out of his sight. The Michelson brothers surprisingly forgave Marcel's boldness and arrogance. As they walked, Marcel and Klaus bickered, with Klaus shedding the gentle demeanor he showed his daughter and scolding Marcel harshly. Elijah and Haley's group was much more peaceful. Vincent explained that in New Orleans legend, ghosts appear in the form of blue light, but no one knows how to kill a spirit that doesn't have a body. The long night wore on, and the Dark Sorcerer had already prepared the sacrificial ritual. Kinney was the first to appear at the ritual site, followed by the tracking team arriving at the battleground. The sight of bones piled high was chilling, and the 4 children were bound tightly and tossed to the side. The Dark Sorcerer handed Kinney a dagger, signaling that the ritual could begin. Klaus and Marcel exchanged a glance, then grabbed the nearest weapons and swiftly took down the lead Dark Sorcerer. They then plunged into the battle, ruthlessly slaughtering all the Dark Sorcerers. Vincent and Haley focused on saving the children, racing against time to carry each one off the sacrificial altar. Kinney still tried to put up a fight. Vincent told him it was all over, but Kinney replied that it was only just beginning. He reached for Marcel, using the sigil to drag him into the ritual circle. Klaus, desperate to save his son, rushed in, but it was exactly what Kinney had planned. The ritual had already begun, and flames quickly erupted around the father and son, with the magical circle keeping Elijah out. Klaus and Marcel came to their senses amidst a field of dark blue orchids, with a skull emitting a faint blue light before them. Vincent finally understood the Hollow's plan. It had never been after the children. What it truly wanted were the 2 most powerful originals. Klaus and Marcel were the real sacrifices for the Hollow's resurrection. The children were still alive, but they were now linked to the sacrificial magic. The only way to break the ritual was to kill one of the children. Elijah was ready to act, but Haley immediately rejected the idea. Trapped within the magic circle, Klaus remembered his daughter's warning and reminded his son not to look directly at the blue light. Vincent quickly found a loophole in the spell. If they linked Elijah to the children, then killed Elijah, It would break the ritual without sacrificing any of the kids. Elijah didn't hesitate and reached out to hold Vincent's hand. As the spell began to take effect, Elijah became a source of energy for the ritual, just like the children.
Haley, do it now!
Haley drove a stake into Elijah's heart, and he slowly collapsed into her arms, his color fading away. Freya, who was with her niece, also felt the magical tremor. They had succeeded. Haley immediately pulled the stake from Elijah's chest. Klaus and Marcel emerged from the magic circle. Hope awoke from her unconscious state and hugged her aunt tightly. The Michelson family had once again survived a harrowing battle. Vincent watched the scene with satisfaction. Elijah smiled as he walked away. Haley thanked Marcel for everything he had done, assuring him they would no longer fight for control of the city. Marcel told Haley he would never be Hope's enemy. Keelan fulfilled her promise and brought Marcel's venom to Freya. Freya seemed a bit moved. She took Keelan's hand and removed the spell from the ring, allowing Keelan to take it off at will without losing the power to control her transformations. This gesture of goodwill was acknowledged by Keelan, leading to a thaw in their relationship.